Today we are going to start Unit 2, which is dealing with relations and functions. Our student expectation is to be able to decide if a relation that is represented in different forms is actually a function. So we want to know what is a function, what are characteristics of a function, how do you determine if a relation is a function, how is a function different from a relation, and then why is it important to know what variable is the independent variable. Now we're going to start with some definitions. First, we need to define what is a relation. A relation between two variables x and y is simply a set of ordered pairs. An ordered pair consists of an x and a y coordinate, and that relation can be viewed or represented as the ordered pairs, a mapping, a table, a graph, or even an equation. The ordered pair consists of two coordinates. We have the first x value. The x value is also known as the input, the independent variable, or the domain. So when you see any of these words, they are referring to the x values. The y values are also known as the output, the dependent variable, or the range. So if you see any of these words, it is referring to the y coordinate. It says, what makes this a relation? Well, if we simply take a look at the definition that we saw on the first slide, the definition of a relation is a set of ordered pairs. And it appears here that we have a set of ordered pairs, so this would be a relation. What is the domain? The domain is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why is this the domain? If you said because these are the x values, you are correct, because the domain is simply the set of all of the x coordinates. That would mean that if we wanted to know the range, we would be looking at the same coordinates, but we would be looking at the second value, which are the y values, and that would give us our range. So again, domain simply means the x values, range, the y values. Is this a relation? Here we're using different words. We have input and we have output. We can see here that each of our input values does have an output value, which means that it makes a set of ordered pairs. So this would also be considered a function, a relation. What is the domain? Again, the domain would be all of the x values, which can also be said as the input value. So all of the things that are being input would be our domain. So those are the yellow circles that you see above. And the y values are also known as the output values. So the output values would be -2 and 7. As you can see in this example, you do not have to have the same number of input values or output values, meaning there can be more numbers in the domain than in the range and vice versa. Now we need to determine what is a function. So we know what a relation is, but what makes a relation a function? So according to a textbook, a function is a relation in which every input has exactly one output. What does that mean? I always like to think of this situation like a vending machine. It's a very basic visual representation of an input and an output. If you know how a vending machine works, you go to the machine, you input a code, and the machine outputs a product. Now you can see here in our picture that every single item has its own code. That means that there's only one code that's going to work for each slot. So that means that one code is going to give me one product. If that happens, that means that my function or my machine is functioning properly, because every code gives me one product. For example, if I were to say E2 and I get a Pepsi, that's fine. If the next person comes behind me and they also press E2, they should also get a Pepsi, because the same code should give you the same product. We run into a problem if a third person comes in and they put in the code E2, but they get a Sprite. Then something is wrong, because we can't have one code that gives us different products. So that would make this function not work, which means that